it is very, very important that literature review needs to be thoroughly done, and it should be done properly so that a good research strategy for the research can be developed. So let us start this session on how to write effective literature reviews, and I will be sharing some practical insights from my own research papers as well as papers from which I have read from prominent journals in the field of management. Okay, so let us start. So, what is a literature review? Basically, what is a literature review? So, we should be on the same page regarding this. So, what I have noticed from my experience reading papers and dissertation, as well writing my own papers, as writing my own dissertation, that literature review is nothing but a critical recap of what has already been researched. Now, notice the word here, critical recap. What do you mean by critical recap? Means you are basically retelling all the stories that previous research has reported in their papers, in their research, but you are also evaluating them in the context of your problem. Secondly, it's a piece of academic writing demonstrating knowledge and understanding of topic. That means when you write a literature review, you write a in-depth essay about the topic of interest, that is your research topic, and then you show that you know all the definitions as well as all the relationships, as well as all the important studies and theories that have been developed on the topic. And lastly, it's a critical evaluation of the material. What do you mean by critical evaluation? That we in literature review we report that okay, so many papers have reported this and so many papers have reported that. But literature review, it's not just a report, okay, it's also an evaluation. That means we try to understand and try to conclude and try to generalize things by reading, let us say, x number of papers. Okay, it is not just that we report that such paper has said this, such paper has said that. We first of all try to read all of those and then try to connect and see what is the big picture. Okay, so literature review is the first step in taking up your research. That is, first of all, critically evaluating what has been already done in your field. Okay, if you critically evaluate what has already been done in your field, then you basically avoid all the major pitfalls that researchers have to face in the later stages of their research. For example, justifying the novelty of the research, selecting an appropriate methodology for conducting that research, selecting appropriate tools and techniques for data collection as well as data analysis, and finally reporting how does your study results stand vis-a-vis the reported literature. So all these steps that are needed to be taken in a good research can very well, you can avoid the pitfalls in all these steps if your literature review is very sound, because literature review can help you, it provides you with a ready guide as to how you can take up your research instead of looking answers for your problems here and there. Basically, all the problems of research regarding all these aspects are there in the literature, and properly searching the literature and finding insights from it and writing them properly is how you go about it. So, what is the purpose of a literature review? Okay, so when we develop literature reviews, there are two basically purposes and there are two basically approaches: a simple review and a complex review. Now, a simple review is very much very basic, and this is basically done when we are trying to introduce a new topic to an audience. For example, a researcher who is preparing their research proposal to be presented in front of a research committee, or you are writing the introduction to a paper, or you are writing the introduction to your thesis. This is basically a simple review, and it basically presents us the current state of work on a particular topic. For example, if somebody wants to work on, let us say, industry 4.0 and its effects on sustainability, then they might just collect the studies which have explored this topic and present their findings to the committee and select a further topic for research. Now, we take this a little bit further, and then we come to the complex review. Now, what is a complex review? And this is the complex review is actually the main thing that we are focusing on when we are writing papers and writing theses. Now, complex review, what is a complex review? Now, complex review basically helps us to uncover research problems and research gaps for further exploration. Now, in the previous slide, I just mentioned that literature review is a critical evaluation. Okay, it's not just a report of that you are reporting literature that so and so have reported that. It's also a critical evaluation. That means you read n number of papers and then you evaluate and try to generalize the findings of all those 10 papers into some kind of a evaluation or a review. That's why it's called literature review. You review, you evaluate, and you basically assess the information that has been provided in form of these papers. So complex literature review is what we basically focus on when we are writing papers and theses. And it helps us to uncover research problems and research gaps for further exploration. Now, you might have seen in research papers and theses that there is always a section for scope for further work or future work. Okay. Now, that scope for further work and future work is basically things that the current study feels that they were not able to include, or including those things were a little bit out of scope, or they might make the methodology tedious. So they put all these things in this section. Now, when you are doing a complex literature review, reading these sections of the papers is very important because they helps us to uncover research problems or research gaps. If somebody has left something to be done as a scope for future work, then that basically indicates a research gap. And complex literature review basically does this only, कि it collects a series of research gaps from the paper regarding one particular topic, and then you connect all those gaps and you basically get your research topic. So you can see that it is very simple to get a research topic instead of trying to justify or trying to go about n number of topics and then rejecting them due to grounds of practicality or some novelty. Instead, when selecting topics, if you have narrowed down your field of work, okay, for example, if you have narrowed down your field of work that I want to explore the managerial impacts of technology on sustainable supply chain management, that means you have narrowed down your area now, that technology, sustainability and supply chain management. And in this case, you should now proceed for complex literature review. That means try to connect these three aspects and try to see what work has not been done. If you apply this type of methodology right from the beginning when you are starting to finalize your topic, you won't run into the problems of novelty as well as topic being repetitive or topic not being sound enough. Most of the problems that I face when I guide students, that I hear that is that many of their research committees have returned their synopsis saying that the topic is not what you call original, or there is no novelty in the research. Secondly, the definitions as well as concepts are very vaguely defined. Now, this is a problem that directly can be solved if the researcher does a prior literature review before preparing their project proposal or synopsis. And it might sound a little bit counterintuitive to you that if somebody haven't started their research, how can they do a literature review? That is actually the main point of literature review. It doesn't come at the second step when you have finalized the topic. No, you start with the literature review, then you finalize the topic, and then you further explore the topic in greater detail as to what is the scope of research available in that topic, what are the gaps, and how these gaps can be fulfilled. This way, when you prepare a synopsis or a proposal, if you have done a preliminary research, you will have a very good idea what are the gaps, how and what are the methodologies that have been employed. For example, if certain fields are very much heavily relied on quantitative methods, then you have an idea of how you will approach those things. Certain fields rely on qualitative methods, then also you will have idea basically reading all those studies. So the main point is, literature review is the starting point of research, not the second point. People take it as a second point that, okay, when the topic has been finalized, now let's do literature review. No, that's a little bit counterproductive, because if the topic is finalized, then you basically work in the reverse way, and you are basically defending everything instead of taking a proactive approach and taking offense in the form of publishing things which are novel and you have some new ideas. You are basically defending your position, and there will come a time where it will become increasingly very difficult to defend a position. So in order to avoid that pitfall, start with literature review. Okay. Now, another important thing that we must realize when doing and writing literature reviews, and this is the thing that I have also noticed as a reviewer as well as when helping people, that there are certain things that we mischaracterized and we misput in the LR section. Now, what are this? What are those things? First of all, literature review is not just an annotated bibliography. That means ki you should not put anything that you have read remotely interesting to your topic under the head of literature review. No. Literature review should only contain things which are very near to the topic and which requires, extensive discussion and description in order to, finalize the research gaps, research questions, and the research objectives of the study. Literature review, one major rule of thumb that I follow when doing literature reviews is that any information which does not directly contributes to the objectives or the research questions or the hypothesis development of the study should not be there in the literature review section. If you are trying to, introduce your topic or put some important definitions from the literature regarding your topic, put that in the introduction section. Yes, although in literature review helps a lot in those type of things, then but also in that case also literature review helps you, but do not put those definitions and introducing the topic in the literature review section. In the literature review section, put those in the introduction section. Literature review section is basically only for the development of the conceptual framework of the study and the research gap and the objective of the study. Anything that you have used the literature review, for example, for defining the topic, putting out important definitions, should be put in the introduction. Secondly, do not put unrelated sources, means put only those sources in the literature review which you have directly used. Okay. Secondly, summaries of sources, background information, or explanation of concepts, as I have just indicated. These all should be put in the introduction section. And lastly, an argument for the importance of your research topic. Now, this is also a very important point in when writing research papers for journals. We usually highlight the importance of our research topic, okay, why we are doing this research, and what is the broader appeal of this research topic for academia as well as for the managers. So in that case also, literature review helps you, but the same thing should be put in the introduction section of the study, not in the literature review. Literature review basically starts with the defining the variables of the study, their connection to the study, and finally the research questions that we have arrived as a result of the literature review. Okay, so now we come to the basic operationalization part of the literature review. Okay, and from my prior experience, this is what I have understood through writing papers and getting feedback from reviewers as well as getting feedback from my own supervisors in PhD and postdoc, as to what are the contents or what are the main themes that should follow in a literature review, and what are the best practices that should be followed when writing or developing a literature review. So it doesn't matter where you are in your research stage. For example, if you are beginning, or if you are in the middle, or if you are in the end stages, literature review will help you in all those stages. So first of all, let us say if you are in the beginning stage, then you need to ask your question, why? Why are we doing the literature review? So when it comes to the why, first of all, the why question, that why we are doing literature review, this is basically directed by the objectives of your research. Okay. And how do we get the objectives of our research? As I said when you previously, that when you are selecting your topic, don't just select any topic randomly. Try to first of all, get a very good feel or understanding of the field, what is being currently researched, what is being currently published, and then try to pick a area of interest, which interests you, and then try to focus on those things. So this is basically the why we are doing literature review, basically to achieve our research objectives. Okay, for example, if my research objective is to see the performance of new technologies on sustainable supply chain management, then basically my research objective is technology, sustainability, and supply chain management. And when I start searching papers on these topics, then my research objectives should be to first of all get an understanding of this field, that how technology, sustainability, and supply chain management are connected. Then basically see what are the research gaps or the research avenues that are still left for a researcher to work on. Okay, so this is the why. And why, if you have answered this question why in the preliminary stages, then it becomes very very easy for you to prepare your synopsis, as well as justify your research objectives, as well as justify your topic. Because many a times it does happen that researchers are feeling a little bit disappointed and jaded that their research topic has been rejected by the RDC committees. And this does happen because RDC committees, since they are more experienced than the researcher, so they have seen a lot of the research on the particular topic, and they see that there is no novelty. So in order to avoid that pitfall, the why should be very well answered. And for getting your research objectives to be very crystal clear, you need to do first of all preliminary review. Now, what are the sources of material relevant? Now, this is also another very important issue that needs to be addressed with literature review. Where should a person look for relevant sources of materials regarding their research? Now, for this, you need to be very clear, and you need to identify the journals which publish work in your domain. Now, this can be done by, first of all, if you are working in any major functional area like marketing, finance, or human resources, you can basically go to Google and search the top 10 publications in your area. Okay, and you can filter them and categorize them based on their H index, or their quartile rankings, or their ABTC rankings, so on and so forth. There are a lot many matrices. But every field has some 10, 12, 15 very good journals that are taken as a benchmark for research in that area. For example, in case of supply chain management, we have International Journal of Production Economics, which is published by Elsewhere. So it is taken as a benchmark, and it is a highly regarded journal in terms of its quality, as well as its ranking in different matrices. So people start from there, and from there they start reading down. Okay, if you identify one good journal, the chances are you will also, when you start reading their papers, you will also come across 2 3 more excellent journals, because all these journals, they co-cite each other. Because the thing is, when you are doing literature review and you are citing sources, always cite sources from good publications. Okay, because literature review is the foundation of your research. You are building up your case for your research, that why I have certain objectives, why I have certain methodologies, why I am analyzing my data this way, why I am collecting my data this way. So in order to get a very good understanding of this, and as well as being able to defend it with comfort, you should always start reading from the top journals of the area, and then move your way down. Never start from bottom up. And if you start from top down, you will also get a better understanding of what are the current trends, and what are the current trends in the topics, as well as the current trends in how data is being analyzed and presented in the form of a paper. Okay, because the thing is, whenever there is a shift in the type of analysis or the type of studies on how we present our findings, the top journals are the first to follow suit, and they are the ones who highlight the best practices when it comes to different types of issues in publication. So reading them helps us to get a first of all a good source of material for exploring a particular topic. Secondly, it helps us to train ourselves in a better way to achieve those objectives. Remember, if you are trying to publish in a journal which is ranked at ABDCB or Q2 as per Web of Science, then you must be continuously reading papers which are of A category and Q1 category. If you want to publish in Q2 and B category, then always try to develop your understanding of the topics from a journal a little bit higher than that, because it's a trickle down process. Okay, whatever the top journal says, the smaller journals pick it up, and then they try to explore the smaller issues of that particular topic. So where is very important, and Google Scholar is your best what you say friend in this. If you don't have subscriptions to expensive what you say databases like Scopus or Web of Science, then Google Scholar is your best friend. And if you are not finding some papers available in the Google Scholar, you can basically search the ResearchGate page of the author, as well as you can even request the authors directly to send you a PDF copy for your research. And authors usually comply because you are doing academic research, it's not for commercial purposes. So they usually comply and send you the papers. Now, third most important point after why and where is what. Outline major themes and areas which can help achieve the research objectives. Now, in the previous slide, I have talked about simple literature review and complex literature review. And simple literature review is nothing. You basically introduce the topic, put some major working definitions, and highlight what has been done in the field. And in complex review, I said ki we read papers and we try to connect the themes and topics that they are talking about, and then try to filter out what are the research gaps that we can put out. Now, this is the what part of the literature review. Okay, ki if you are doing literature review, what are the deliverables that I'm trying to take out. So for example, if your supervisor and you, let us say you decide on a particular topic. Okay, let us say we are working on industry 4.0 and sustainability. Then the second task which your supervisor expects from you is that you do a literature review. Okay, everybody does a literature review, and it is one of the starting points. Takes around 6 to 8 months to a year when you're starting with your PhD. And the major objective that the supervisor wants you to achieve when doing literature review is that when you have read, let us say 50, 60, 100 papers on that particular topic during this period of time, then you should be able to, outline certain major thematic areas that are being explored and talked about in these papers. Okay. For example, in Industry 4.0, there are a lot of technologies that are coming in. For example, blockchain, then we have artificial intelligence, then we have augmented reality. So you should be able to, take out these themes and then see what is the effect of these technologies on, let us say, supply chain efficiency, sustainability performance, operational performance, manufacturing performance, waste reduction, so on and so forth, financial performance. So basically, you are trying to, connect all the things that you have read and see the big picture. This is the what part. Okay. And whenever the supervisor asks you to present a give a presentation on the literature review, this is what they are looking for. And this is what even journal reviewers and editors are looking for when you are presenting your literature review. They just want to basically see what themes and what major areas you have taken out and how they are connected and how they can serve your research objectives. Now, the another next step regarding what is organized, group similar articles together based on their themes. This is very, very important, because when you group similar articles based on their themes, you start to see patterns in the research. And when you start seeing patterns in the research and you have similar articles, those similar articles basically try to, research on one particular topic. For example, lot many articles published in on the topic of Industry 4.0 have taken blockchain and studied its effects on different parameters of a firm, like firm performance, sustainability performance, operational performance, financial performance, manufacturing performance. all those sorts of things. So you need to, be very clear when grouping these, when, grouping studies, because this helps us to identify the big picture. And this is the point where you're grouping studies, that you basically develop a inventory of variables for your own research, as well as you develop an inventory of research gap at this stage only, which can be used as a research question and research objective for your own research. When you start grouping similar articles together, I'll explain to you what I mean to this when I'll show you an example from my own research. So you will basically understand what do I mean by when say grouping similar articles based on their themes. And lastly, analyze, interpret, and revisit. Means when you have read, let us say, 50, 100 papers, you have answered why, where, and what, you have organized them nicely into some categories, then analyze means what groups and categories you have made, analyze those. Interpret means try to connect what you have read, how the 50, 100 studies that you have read, how do they gel in with one another. How means either you can say what are the overlapping thematic areas, what are the new thematic areas, how a particular concept has developed over time. These are the things that analyze, interpret phases of the LR part will deliver you. And lastly, revisit. It's very important that sometimes we miss certain important studies. If I'm new to a particular topic and I'm reading about that topic first time, it's quite common that I might miss certain important studies. So revisit is very important. And revisiting literature review is something that you will be doing quite a lot. Even when you are writing the conclusion of your paper or your thesis, then also revisit to the literature review is very imperative, because it helps us to, iron out or fill in the blanks of things, of some things that we are not sure about. So if something we are not sure about, we can always refer to the literature and see what previous academicians have said about a particular topic. So even when you are concluding your research, then revisiting a literature review is very, very important. Okay, because it helps us to, further refine and also recommend scope for future work from our own work also. Okay, and writing a good conclusion and also recommending scope for future work when you're concluding your paper or your thesis is also something very important. And this is what editors and reviewers do look for when they are reviewing your papers. Basically shows what the depth and breadth of your knowledge regarding a particular topic. If you are recommending certain aspects as to be, explored in the future research, that means you have a very good understanding of that topic, and you basically recognize and acknowledge the shortcomings as well as limitations, and then you propose them as scope for future work. So this is something very important. And one editor once also said to me that when you are writing conclusion in a journal of very good ranking, what we are expecting is that basically we want you to highlight a future roadmap for research for researchers. And this is what they say, one of the major goals of a good journal is not just to report current research, but also, put forward a roadmap for future researchers also. And when that editor said that to me, I also, reflected on that, and I also thought that I also picked up my research gap and my research objective by reading papers from good journals only. So, this is a continuous process that we have to, if you are picking up something, then you have to return back to the community also. So revisiting literature review is very, very important. Okay. So, the more you read the papers again and again, the more new things you will find each time. Okay. Because we cannot read one paper completely at once. We have to, revisit. Sometimes our knowledge also gets upgraded, and when we revisit the same papers, we see them in some new light. So these are the, 5 major broad steps that I personally take when I do a literature review. Why, where, what, and fourthly, organizing it. And after organizing it, I try to see the big picture. Means if I have organized certain papers as one category, certain papers as second category, and third category, then I try to see what is the major common theme in all the categories. Thirdly, I see how these categories, how all these studies in different categories are connected to one another. If they are connected, Excellent. If they are not connected, can I connect them through complex literature review, through trying to, analyze, interpret, and revisit them? If that's if I can connect them, then I have a good research problem and objective in hand. If not, then we have to, again go back to the first step. Now, why? Be crystal clear with your objectives and research questions. Now, in this, we first of all decide what will be our LR strategy. Means whether we are doing a quantitative review or qualitative review. Now, quantitative review is a meta analysis or a systematic review. So, next time I will be taking a session on how to practically do a systematic or a meta analysis review. So, why should be very clear. For example, if your aim is to write a paper on which you have certain 2-3 research questions, and then you have 2-3 hypotheses, and you are trying to test those hypotheses either through experimental data or through field data, then it will become a case of what you say theory driven literature review. Means you are trying to put forward the theory behind your 3 hypotheses, that why you are trying to explore or test these 3 hypotheses. So in that case, literature review more or less will be qualitative, in the sense that you will try to pour in all the studies which highlight a particular association between 2 variables, some studies which highlight no association, some studies which highlight weak association, so on and so forth. And second is a quantitative literature review. That means you have a meta or a systematic review. In this, our aim is not to finalize a hypothesis or a research question or a research objective, but our aim is to see, basically meta means you try to summarize the broad subject area into some small 2-3 points. This is what is meant by a meta-analysis. Metadata means data about data. So for example, there are 100 studies published on that topic. So you basically try to generalize the findings of those 100 studies. So that is a meta-analysis. Secondly, topic selection and narrowing for further research. This is also why literature review is also very important. For example, if let us say I have said I want to do research on industry 4.0, then inside industry 4.0 there are a lot of things. As I said, blockchain, AI, smart manufacturing. Okay, so I have to first pick up one area. Let us say I want to study blockchain. Then blockchain also, there are a lot of things. There are technical aspects of blockchain regarding programming and all those things. Then there are legal aspects of blockchain regarding smart contracts and all those things. Then there are also technical aspects, mean how blockchain affects the managerial variables. For example, as I said, operational performance, supply chain performance, sustainability performance, so on. So basically, how do you arrive at all those things? When you have a topic, you start doing literature review, and you will see that there are many variables that are involved, and then you try to pick one variable which looks promising and try to see up to what extent researchers have done research on it and what are the research gaps. Now the process keeps on. This process of literature review, it's not very linear, it's rather very circular. You read, you analyze, and then you revisit. Okay, it might look like you are running around in circles initially, but this is the main thing about literature review. You have to be a little bit patient and keep running in circles. Then only you will be able to finally arrive at the topic which is very pinpointed, surgical, and doesn't leave any nuance to be interpreted by the reader. This is one of the main complaints that research committees or RDC committees have with candidates, is that the topic is not very tightly defined. And that is why most of the new scholars get comments from the RDC committee that the topic needs to be revised, or topic needs to be modified. Why they are saying that? Because the topic that they have mentioned, it's very wide, and you cannot do research on a wide topic, because the more you try to get serious with research, the more tight-lipped and more tightly defined things start to get. Okay, so if you just say effect of industry 4.0 on business performance, that is a vague topic, especially if you are submitting a proposal for a PhD program. So you have to, they expect that you have at least some basic understanding of that topic, because you're committing yourself for 4 to 5 years to one field of area of work. So that means it should be something that you have some knowledge about. Okay, you cannot be very oblivious and jump into a PhD program and then try to explore the topic. No, that's it not should that's not how it should be done. And that's the reason that most of the time RDC committees return people's proposal and they try to ask you to reframe the topic, or retitle the topic, because they want you to be very 100% sure, as well as narrow down your research area. Because when we start our research journey, we think that we will be able to do X number of things in these 4 or 5 years. But as we as we read more and more about in the literature, and we devise our own methodology for our own research, we come to the realization that it's not possible to do all of the things. So we have to be very specific, do small things, do some things, but do them excellently. And this is where topic selection and narrowing for further research, this is where literature review is very, very imperative. Especially when you are writing research papers, then in research paper, there is always a very, hard word limit, 8,000 word, 10,000 word, max to max 12,000 words. And in those 8, 10 and 12,000 words, you have to be very specific about your topic. You cannot start vaguely and then come to the point. You have to be very specific from line number 1. And for that, literature review is your best friend to get that kind of certainty in your mind, or specificity in your topic, tightness in your topic when you are taking it in front of somebody. And lastly, revise, revisit, and repeat. That means, again, in every step when you complete in the literature review, always revise, try to revisit, try to look at from a different angle. Because what I feel is that when you are doing your research continuously for some time and you are reading, sometimes you get fatigued by it. So take a break, and then after coming back to the break, try to see the big picture of what you have read in, let us say, few papers that you have downloaded or gotten, and then see how they are connected to each other. What are the similarities? What are the points of differences? And if you keep doing all these things, you will develop a very good map of the area of your research in your mind in the period of 6 to 8 months. And these 6 to 8 months will be, just reading papers, nothing else. And initially, when you start the research, don't jump into the questionnaire designing or all these things. And because these things come naturally when you have done a very good literature review. And by naturally, I means you won't be stuck with these things. Stuck means you will have a very good inventory with you on how to do these things. Okay, for example, data collection, designing the strategy for data collection, methodology, analysis, all these things, you will have a very good toolbox with yourself only if you do a literature review. You won't have to ask anybody else. Okay, so where means how you will, from where you will get all the materials needed for your literature review. So when you are in the initial stages of the literature review, means you are trying to narrow down your topic or doing topic selection. In those cases, always cast a very wide net. Okay, by wide net I means, for example, all the textbooks, major textbooks of your area, all the journals, conference proceedings, all those things, try to cast a wide net. Secondly, after casting this wide net, you have to then also shortlist articles which are related to your topic. You should keep articles which are not related to your topic. You should dump. Okay, why carry excess material with you which is not needed? It will only create clutter and problems later on. So how do we do this? We first of all very casually glance at the title and abstract of the articles if they are related to our area. For example, let us say Industry 4.0, and some article title says new technologies and effect on business performance. That means, yeah, it is somewhat related. I'll keep that. But I'll also read the abstract, whether this article specifically talks about Industry 4.0. If it doesn't, then might be used for me, might not be used for me, might not be, of highly importance to me. So read the title and then the abstract, and make a second decision at that moment where you want to keep that article or not. If you are ambiguous, put it in an ambiguous folder or else delete it. Second, broad theories in your area. Okay, there are certain theories which are popular in particular fields of research. For example, all those people who are researching on human resource management and industrial psychology, they mostly come across Maslow's need hierarchy model. Okay, so that's a famous theory which people in psychology, human resources, industrial psychology will come across. Okay, so all these theories which are contemporary theories which are present regarding particular topic, you should be well versed with. Okay, because they provide the definitions, and they also provide the current state of knowledge on that particular topic, that where we are and what needs to be further put on regarding this topic. So for example, if let us somebody says I want to study the adoption of industry 4.0 technologies by industry, then in that case you should be well versed with theories that study technology adoption. Okay, technology adoption theories हैं, जैसे for example there is a technology adoption model, UT2 with risk model. These theories basically study the technology adoption process. So if you are trying to study the industry 4.0 technology adoption by industries, then you should also first of all know about the in general technology adoption models. Okay, and lastly, delimitations. What are these? Now this is useful when you are searching databases like Scopus or Web of Science. Okay, now let us say I have finalized my topic. Let us say my topic is effect of industry 4.0 tools on supply chain management, and that too I have finalized it to blockchain's effect on supply chain management. That means now I have narrowed down my topic to blockchain, that is one of the industry 4.0 tools, and on the business side I am just taking the supply chain performance. So this is how I have delimited. Okay, and delimitation, when I will query the Scopus database or Web of Science database and I want to read only studies which deal with blockchain and supply chain management, then I'll put these in double quotes and then search them. This is known as delimation, and this helps us to find articles which specifically deal with one topic or one type of keyword. Okay, and this only comes when you have done all the above steps. So delimation is very useful when you are trying to find articles on very specific or niche issues, or even when you are trying to develop a systematic literature review on particular topic. So when you are trying to develop systematic literature reviews, then you have to be very calculated in putting the keywords in searches, and this delimation process is very much derived from how we do our literature review. Now, what means, what are the deliverables that we are trying to come out with our literature review? When we are trying to present our literature review in a progress presentation or in the thesis or in the research paper, what are the deliverables that are expected from a researcher? First of all, when you are reading papers, as I said, it will guide you in all of the steps, right? From defining the topic to selecting the topic to methodology and everything. So when you are reading papers, take into account what type of methodology, measurements they have, authors in particular studies in your field have taken, and what is the, importance or justification that they have used. Because many a times, researchers get very perplexed when they are asked by the research committees as to why they are using a particular type of research methodology, why not this methodology, why that methodology. They try to give answers based on common sense, and the discussion keeps on dragging and dragging and dragging. तो जो expert होगा वो natural सी बात है, he will or she will try to steer the conversation in their own direction. Means जो उनका strong suit होगा methodology का, they will try to steer the discussion in that direction. But if you are thorough with your literature review, you can basically justify your position as to why you are taking a particular methodology. Okay. Sometimes there are constraints. Constraints are always there. Constraint of time, money, practicality. And secondly, there are certain constraints which are limited to the problem at hand. Some problems can only be explored quantitatively nicely. Some problems can only be explored through qualitative methods. So in that cases also, literature review, if you take in, if you are studying papers and you are carefully highlighting what are the what are the methodologies authors have taken, what justifications they have taken. So after reading some papers, you will be, you will start seeing trends in this also, and based on those trends you can, take a call for your methodology, and you can cite those papers as to why you are using this type of methodology. This becomes very foolproof. And when you do things this way, neither the reviewers, neither the editors, or nor the research committees will have any objection down the line. Okay, because you have documented everything, you have given sources and citations for your choices. Now, there are qualitative studies also. When we read literature review, there are a lot many qualitative studies, especially in management and social sciences. But the findings that are reported by qualitative studies should be taken with a grain of salt. And why I'm saying this, because the qualitative studies, the sample is usually very small, because you cannot take 500, 600, 1000 people in a qualitative study and analyze the information that is given by them. Because the way people give information in qualitative studies is through interviews, whether structured or unstructured. And in that case, the data is not collected on an objective scale. Everybody's experience is unique. So usually qualitative studies have a very small sample size, and they provide a very in-depth account of a particular phenomena. But there's a trade-off. You have a small sample size and you are providing a very good account, but because of the small sample size, the studies should not be taken as a generalized view on a particular issue, because the sample size of qualitative studies are very small. However, you can use the findings of the qualitative study as a scope for further research or as a research question in your own research. But don't take the findings of qualitative studies at face value and report it or use it as to support your own results. Okay. If you want to use qualitative studies, yes, you can use it as a source for explaining certain phenomena, but don't rely it specifically to establish causality. Okay, causality means A affects B. Don't use qualitative studies, because the thing is, small sample size lead to poor generalizability of these studies. Okay, and that is why we have statistical analysis, because we want to see what is the generalizability of a particular relationship to a larger population. So when it comes to qualitative studies, they do provide very important insights, but they should be taken with a grain of salt, and we should not quick to generalize the effects outcomes of qualitative studies. Use them as a research question, use them as a research gap, but don't try to pinpoint causality with qualitative studies. Secondly, how to remedy this causality problem? Read meta-analysis papers. Okay, in medical field, mostly meta-analysis papers are very famous. For example, if people are doing studies on a particular drug, or they are doing drug trials, then most of the cases meta-analysis studies are referred, because meta-analysis study is basically a collection of all the studies that have done on a particular topic, and they have generalized the findings to a big picture. That is known as a meta-analysis or a systematic literature review. So systematic literature reviews on one particular topic can provide you very good understanding of the issues in hand. Because, for example, if you are trying to connect two variables like technology and business performance, then you can read papers which have done systematic review, and you can get a very good generalized overview that how over a period of certain years this association has held up, or has it been debunked. Okay, so when you are trying to establish causality or trying to report causality in your research, don't rely on qualitative research too much. Try to look into meta-analysis papers also. Now, Another important or practical thing when doing literature review is how to organize your thoughts. Okay, now this is something that I was very poor at doing, and my supervisor asked me to write a page about environmental sustainable consumption ones. Okay, so what I did was I wrote all the latest fancy definitions at the top, and then I tried to uh, jam as much as latest information that I could have read on the topic, and I tried to jam all the information in one A4 size page. So he said to me that this is not the correct way, because he said, okay, you have jammed all the latest information, but this thing can be done by anybody sitting on having an internet connection. This can be done by anybody who has an internet connection. Then why we should call you a researcher? So it is very important that you organize your literature review, because when you organize your literature review, then only you can derive insights from it. As I said earlier, it's literature review is not just a report of what has been done in the previous literature. It's a critical evaluation. That means you evaluate, you review what they have done, what others have done, what new things can be done regarding after reading their research gaps and their limitations. So it's a critical review. So organizing is very important, because when you organize it, that then only you can do a proper review of a particular area after doing literature review. So when you are organizing, always organize chronologically. Means try to what you say arrange the studies which you have downloaded and which you have read chronologically, either from oldest to newest or vice versa. This helps us, uh, when we organize our research material chronologically, we can basically see how a particular topic has developed over time. Okay, what are the stages of development, what are the limitations that each stage had. So we get a very good understanding of the topic, and in that case none of the reviewers or editors or committee members can put us in a corner. If we are very thoroughly well versed with the chronology of a particular topic, they cannot put you in a corner that you have not done this or you have not taken this aspect, because since you are reading literature chronologically, you very well know at what point of time our theory developed, what were its limitations, and to remedy those limitations, what new work was done further. Okay. So basically, research is about building on the work that has already been done and taking it further. So when you organize chronologically, you basically get a very good idea of how things have developed over time, and then you can take them forward. Secondly, when you are organizing your work, organized by author, region, and publication type. Now, authors, there are certain when you read papers and you have a particular favorite area that you are researching on, you will notice that there are 5-6 authors that are publishing continuously on that one area, and they are the domain experts. These people usually publish in big journals of your subject, and they have very high impact papers. Now these are the what you call subject expert or domain experts, and you should identify these people as soon as you can when in your literature review, because the thing is, the domain experts, they are the ones who put forward new concepts. As well as putting new concepts, they also put forward a lot of research questions and research gaps also. Because if you are somebody who is a subject expert or a domain expert, then you are also putting out new stuff, but also you are putting out new areas for exploration and call for research to others also. So this is something that we should always take in mind, whether we are researching on either on social sciences topics or science topics or engineering topics. Grouping authors and trying to find domain or subject experts is very important. Secondly, if you quote stuff or cite papers from the domain and subject experts, then nobody will question you on your choices. Because if somebody is a domain expert or subject expert, chances are they are very senior, they have a very high impact factor or H index or everything. So with that, you can rest assured, we very well be, carefree that none of your literature reviews or your theories will get any objection. Secondly, the region in which studies are published. This becomes very important in social sciences, especially management, where context changes, and when context changes, everything changes. And region or area in which people live and where a study has been conducted basically is the context in social sciences. So let us say if somebody is working on new technologies and supply chain management in the West, and I find that there is no study regarding that in India, then also this is a research gap. So how do I arrive at this research gap? When I start organizing studies. Okay, organize studies by region. North America, you have organized. Europe, you have organized. In Asia, and in Asia you can see that there is no study from India. Then in that case, that's a research gap. There is no study from India, that means that's a research gap. So that means, organizing by author and region can be a very fruitful thing. And secondly, by publication also. Means ki how what are the journals and what are their topics, what are their interest areas on which papers are being published. Now this is important for meta analysis point of view, not very directly associated with writing good literature review, but if you are doing a meta analysis, then publication type is very, very important. Thirdly is study type based on method employed. Means what type of study is that? It's whether it's an experimental study or it's a post facto data analysis and collection study, or it's a cross sectional study, or it's a longitudinal study, qualitative, quantitative, mixed method, whatever the thing is. Study type is very important, and basically this will guide your research for the coming 3-4 years, 5 years, or for the 1 year when you will be writing paper, as to what methodology you will be selecting for doing your own research. And second, lastly, variables used and conclusions arrived. Okay, this is one of the most practical and most, what you say, the step that gives the most value out of literature review is organizing your literature review based on the variables employed and the conclusions arrived. Okay, means for example, if you are studying industry 4.0, and as I discussed, industry 4.0 includes a lot of things like blockchain, AI, big data. So when you are trying to research on all those things, try to organize them, and when you organize them, you will see that there are certain themes which are reoccurring again and again. For example, if I'm saying I want to study the effects of blockchain on business performance, then there will be a lot of things that will be coming again and again. Like for example, technology adoption, sustainability performance, operational performance, financial performance. So all these things are variables. So you should, collect all these variables, cite them, and also the conclusions. For example, what conclusion that particular study arrived of studying blockchain on supply chain performance or sustainability performance or operational performance. So you should also, develop a database, whether in a diary or in an Excel sheet, that what variables a particular study used and what conclusions they arrived, because this will help you to define your research question as well your research hypothesis. If certain variables have been associated or been reported largely in the literature by a large number of studies, that means there exists some kind of connection in between those two variables, and you can propose that as a hypothesis in your own study. Okay. So organizing the literature after, collecting, reading, all those things, when you organize your literature, this is basically where you start to get the, real value of this whole process. First thing is chronologically, you get to know how a particular topic has developed over time. Secondly, you get to know who are the high impact authors who are publishing in that field, what are their contributions, what research gaps and further scope for future work they are talking about. You get a very good idea about the methodologies employed, and secondly, the variables used and the conclusions arrived. Okay. Analyze, interpret, and revisit. As I said earlier, it's a recursive process. Okay. You have to revisit literature review at every step to see whether you have left something or whether you have developed new understanding on the topic, and you have to revisit and reread things in a new light. So it's a recursive step, means you do and then you come again, then you come back again to literature review, then you again do it, put some new insights, and then reevaluate. So this is the final. As I said earlier, revisiting literature review after obtaining results and comparing results with the reported literature. This is very important step that new researchers miss out, is that when you are reporting results of your analysis in a paper or in your thesis, your results do not matter in isolation. They matter when they are being compared to other studies in your area or studies which have previously taken those variables under consideration. So then again, you have to, revisit the literature review when you are reporting the results and interpreting the analysis also. Now, when you have organized and everything, the last step that comes is drafting the literature review, means putting all those things in words, putting them in a chapter or in the form of a section in a paper. So there are certain things that you should, best practices that I feel that I have developed as a routine that I use when getting good literature reviews. Okay. So that is when drafting a good literature review. First of all is housekeeping. Okay. For example, if I've read 50, 60 papers on a topic and I have received some papers from somebody else and I have downloaded some and I have received some and I have copied some, then first task is housekeeping. Okay. Put all your sources in one place, all your research articles in one place, all your online sources in one place. And if you have referred to any books and you want to specifically quote something from a book, always quote the page number of the page from which you are taking a quotation. Secondly, most important thing in high housekeeping is citations. Okay, always maintain a repository of the citations that you are using in your LR. And by repository, I means a list of all the citations that are to be included in your literature review. And for this, you can take help of citation managers like Mendeley or BibTeX for LaTeX or R. And Mendeley is something which is a complicated software. So I may conduct a session in future regarding the proper use of Mendeley and BibTeX. So that's work for future work. But housekeeping basically means organizing all your material properly. Okay. So that you can come back to it when the need arises. And secondly, when you're writing literature review, you have to, put citations. Citations are very important. And if you do proper housekeeping of your material, then finding citations and putting them in place is a very easy task. Else it becomes very tedious process of, finding citations and putting them, formatting them. But if housekeeping work is done, it will make your job very, very easy. Second, highlight the objectives of conducting the LR. For example, let us say you are in the initial stages of your research. You are, drafting your topic and you are you are doing a topic selection. Then in those cases, you should be very clear that at this stage, the objective for my literature review is to, get a deeper understanding of a particular topic or to, fine tune my topic. After you have fine tuned your topic, now your considerations might be different. Now you want to find what are the important variables regarding a particular topic, how those variables are related to other variables. Is there any logical connection? If yes, what is the logic? Can this logical connection be tested? So on and so forth. Explain the position of literature on the research topics, research gaps, conflicts, conflicting evidence. Fourth point is always highlight the time frame of the review. Now, this is very, very important, and it's a very minor detail that people miss out. But in any case, if either you are writing a literature review which is solely based on systematic review of literature, or you are writing literature review which is used for theory development, always highlight the time frame from where to where you are doing the literature review. Because what happens is literature is something that keeps on evolving day and day, every day. And you cannot take account all the literature. There is always limitations and scope for future work. But you cannot take all the literature in your purview. So whatever literature you are taking in your purview, either due to practicality or some other reasons, always mention your time frame. Okay, I am taking the research for last previous 10 years from this date under my purview of literature review. And 10 years is a very nice time, because the thing is people recite each other. So if you are reading literature of last 10 years, you will be most probably covering all the literature that has been, developed over the years, because papers get recited by one another. Okay. So older papers get recited by new ones, and new ones will get recited by the new ones that will come in the future. So basically you get all your bases covered. But a good time frame is basically defines and helps, tries to, cut the clutter of how much you should read. Okay, 10 years is more than enough for thesis, and 5 to 6 to 8 years is more than enough for a research paper in a good A category journal. Now, fifth point is always cite relevant papers from top journals of your domain. I have discussed this earlier, that identify the top journals of your domain and also the top authors, and cite papers from them which are relevant to your topic. Okay, because when you cite articles from good journals or top authors, basically it shows that you have a very good understanding of the topic. Secondly, it shows that you appreciate quality in the research, that you read from quality sources, or you follow quality authors. Now these sources and authors, they have a repute in terms of their methodology and in terms of how they develop their study. So if you are following them, that means that you are also putting your research to the same standards as these authors and their publications. Okay, so it is very important that reading good journals is most important, because this is how you will develop your own taste for research. If you start by reading bad journals or journals which don't have repute, then you will develop a taste for research which is not very well suited. But if you start reading from top down, means from good journals to, as the ranking goes down, your taste in research will be very refined. And at this stage of publication, basically you are not selling your skill as a researcher, you are basically selling your taste. The more the stakes get higher, the more you move up the academic ladder, the research is more about selling your taste rather than selling your skills. So for developing good taste, it's imperative to read the top journals or the good journals and the most impactful authors in those areas. Last point is, when starting drafting, is don't plagiarize. And what I mean by don't plagiarize, sometimes it does happen that we find a particular section of a study very interesting or very relevant to our research, and we just try to, copy paste that section into our own writing. Don't do that, because it will get immediately flagged up by a plagiarism detection or similarity detection software. What I do is, basically I read up a particular study, then I read similar studies which have similar conclusions, and then I try to write up the literature review based on what I've understood from these papers in my own language. In my own language. That means I don't copy paste, I write in my own language. Doesn't matter if that first draft is it has lot of grammatical errors or anything, any other language problem. It doesn't matter, it can be corrected later. But if you write in your own language, then that basically solves the problem of plagiarism. You won't get any similarity matches when you write in your own language. But if you copy paste, if you try to copy paste, and if you let somebody else write it for you, then in that case you will not develop a very good understanding of the literature. Secondly, you will always run into plagiarism problems in future, and then you will have to work yourself backwards, try to reduce the similarity index and all those things. So if you read something, understand it, and then try to write it in your own language, doesn't matter if it's grammatically correct or not, you can always correct that later through proofreading, but you won't run into the problem of plagiarism or high similarity indexes. The most contributing factor towards getting high similarity index is that we are not writing things in our own words. We are trying to copy paste from somebody else's words or somebody else's phrases. Because the thing is, the way these softwares detect plagiarism is through lexicon. Lexicon means how the way you speak, the way you write. Everybody's way of speaking and writing is a little bit different. And usually what happens is, literature review is the section that gets the highest similarity index in a paper or in a thesis. because literature review is basically you are reporting what everybody else has done. So people say that okay, this is the section that will get the highest plagiarism or what you say similarity index, but this is not the case. You are basically reading, understanding, and then try to put it out there as what you have understand from the papers, not what they have reported, what you have understood from reading 100 papers, 50 papers, and what generalizable conclusion that you can derive. If you do write your draft or literature review this way, you won't get any plagiarism. That's a guaranteed. And when I ran the plagiarism check for my whole thesis, my whole PhD thesis, I got a plagiarism reading of just 4.5%. And that too in the methodology and analysis section, because there are certain languages which we cannot skip in statistics. So it was getting flagged only for that. But none of my literature review actually got flagged, because this is the crux of the practice that I was using is if I'm reading 10 papers, then I'm trying to absorb what those 10 papers have said and then try to put it in my own words. Doesn't matter if that language is very broken up or very bad, that can be solved later, but try to put it in your own words. Don't try to copy and paste from somebody else. That's the short way of avoiding plagiarism. There is no shortcut to this. There are a lot of AI tools, but since everybody is now using AI and they are being trained on the same data set, it's just a matter of time then that everybody's writing, starts getting 100% similarity index. So try to, do things at in your own style. It brings your own unique flavor, your own unique personality to the research process. It's a creative process. It's not something that research is not something that we do up to fill numbers. It's a creative process. The more flavor you bring, the more coloration you bring from your own side by your own abilities, the more unique and more easy the process will be, instead of trying to copy others. Now to conclude what I have spoken for the last 1 hour, this is just the secret sauce. Try to summarize what you have read. In writing ASAP, that means if I have written if I have read 10 papers, at the end of the day, I try to write one paragraph of what I have tried to understood from those 10 papers with citations. Okay, try to connect with what you have read with your topic. Draw attention to the research gaps. Most important, what you have read in the literature and what gaps literature has pointed towards a particular topic, and how those connect to your topic and how those gaps connect to your topic. It's very important. This is the basically delivery of the literature review in case of a paper or a thesis, that you propose a research gap and research question that needs to be explored. Third, learn the use of reference managers such as Mendeley or BibTeX reference manager. This is just the operational and housekeeping thing. Introduce your topic. Continue the logical progression from idea to idea. Conclude with a research gap. As I have said, introduce your topic, important definitions. See how the topic has developed. See what are the different variables or the different points of view people have used. How much they have explored, how much they have left out, how much they have put that in a gap or in a scope for future work. Try to develop your own connections between studies. As I have said, how these studies are interconnected, what is the big picture, try to generalize things. And then this is the way you basically come up with your own unique research gap. So to conclude, we have a checklist. First of all, you need all the source material relevant, all the major theories, scholarly articles, all the sides that these scholarly articles have represented, whether they are opposing a particular association or whether they are approving it. Connection between topics and the LR means only those literature should be included in your literature review section which are directly related to the topic. Everything else is just excess, and you will be running into either word limit or other issues of irrelevant things. So delete all those things. Fourth, in literature review, any source, even if it's a website or even if it's a journal article, book chapter, quote, anything, it should be properly cited as per the citation manual and the citation style of your publication. Second and last, the most important point is use effective transition from idea to frame a brick picture. Okay. I'll talk about this when I'll show you some papers.